Elder Melanie, I'm just waiting for confirmation that you are all set up and that you can hear us okay before we proceed. Right now, it looks like you're muted.
To speak. Yeah,
Okay. I can hear you now, Elder Melanie. You can hear me?
yeah, can you see me now?
Your screen is not off, it's not on, but we can definitely hear you. It seems like you can hear us okay.
I'm hearing you loudly and clearly.
Okay.
And get on the video now. All right, now to answer. Can you see me now?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Thank you everyone for your patience. This is a CPOC Commissioner meeting and it is hereby called to order. The time is 6:07 p.m. My name is Jolly Hatchet. I am the chair of the Citizens Police Oversight Commission and I will facilitate this meeting. This is a public meeting of the Citizens Police Oversight Commissioners that was properly advertised pursuant to the Pennsylvania Sunshine Act. At this time, I'll just take roll just based on expediency. Jolly Hatchet as the chair, I am present. Froja, is Froja present?
Yes.
Ben Lerner,
Present.
Hassan Bennett,
Present.
John Solomon,
Present.
Elder Melanie DeBose,
Good evening, I am here.
Mariella Santiago,
Good evening, Mariella's here.
Rosora Thomas,
I am here.
and Hakeem Pia.
Present.
All commissioners are present. Thank you. At this time, we did disseminate an agenda. They are in order, but they actually are in no particular order in terms of importance. They're all important. What I would like to do is start with topic E. There was a town hall altercation, or any commissioners. There was a lot of concern expressed in terms of potential altercation that took place. I believe it was last week or the week before that. My synopsis is just that the complaint that I received, and I'm paraphrasing, is that there was a community member in attendance at a meeting that was hosted by the Citizens Police Oversight Commission, and got into an altercation. And by altercation, I'll say a verbal back exchange between the community member and one of the CPOC staff members. At that point, there was an individual who was not a staff member who got and positioned himself in between the two individuals. And at that point in time, there is camera footage. From what I've viewed of the camera footage, it looked like, or I heard audibly the woman say, "Get your hands off on me." I did not make a determination regarding the facts and circumstances regarding that. I believe as a commission, we all agreed to refer that matter to the Inspector General for a factual finding and determination. That I think for me, at least, is high priority in terms of discussion. And so now I'll open it up to any other fellow commissioners who wants to weigh in or discuss anything regarding that.
Well, I was there and I'm Commissioner Du Bois was also there, and so was Hassan. When we were trying to help my husband and I making sure that Elder Du Bois got into her Uber. And during that time that we were trying to, because I'm not familiar with the smartphone. I have an Android. So they were trying to help her. And that's when I heard Citizen One yell out, "Don't put your effing hands on me." So that's when I physically put myself between Citizen One and Mr. Grimmage, who is Talia's husband. My instinct was to put my body between them because I didn't want it to go any further. Now, my husband, Michael Thomas, was there also. But may I elaborate just a little? No matter what, Chairman, no matter what, she may have been upset. She may have been disgusted with everything that has taken place with her in the past. No one has the right to touch her or anything in her belongings. And that's what I witnessed on the video, that he was trying to grab her phone and apparently touched her. Anyone that is a survivor of any domestic violence, let it be from anything, it triggers them. It triggers them. If you touch them, it triggers them. If you speak to them a certain way, it triggers them. And that's what I witnessed. I tried everything possible to calm this citizen one down, but I was unable to because I could see the look in her face. And what did it was when he touched her. So that's the truth. And I believe Miss Citizen One is here, and if she wants to voice or express herself and what she wants to say, I have no problem with that.
Thank you for that. At this time, though, if I can just, if there are any commissioners who want to be heard on that issue. I mean, part of the emergent nature of this meeting, and that was one of the things to address, to just advise the community that this incident occurred and the actions that we've taken and in order to try to address this incident. So again, we'll open it up to the floor at some point, but if there are any other commissioners that want to address this or be heard on this issue, I would like the commissioners to be heard.
This is Elder or Commissioner DuBose. I too was present in this meeting. Before I speak about any particulars that I ear witnessed, I would like to know what the Office of Inspector General's procedures are.
Actually, go ahead, Judge, if you want to wait.
Well, do we have an answer to that question? Because it seems to me, as someone who was not there, and a majority of the commissioners were not there, but as someone who has read the statements that have been provided to us from people who were there and who were there when the actual incident was taking place, and also as someone who has had the responsibility over the years of making decisions when there are conflicting statements and conflicting recollections with regard to a particular incident, unless there is some difficulty with the OIG being willing to take on this investigation, or some problem that we would see with their procedures. I think a full investigation by the particular city agency that is professionally designed and staffed to conduct investigations is an essential first step before the commission decides whether or not we need to take any further action, and if so, what that action ought to be.
So I'm just going to loop back to what I interpreted Elder Melanie question to be in terms of what their process or procedure is. I met with Adam Gare separately, who is a Deputy Inspector General over at the Office of Inspector General, just in terms of procedure, what's going to happen, making sure that he has everything that he needs from the Citizen Police Oversight Commission. And he said at this time, just preliminarily, they will conduct their own independent investigation, which may or may not consist of conducting independent interviews of anyone who they deem to be a necessary witness or someone that they deem that they want to speak with. He advised me and assured me that they come from a neutral perspective where they sort of don't have a dog in the fight, but really just want to make a factual finding in terms of factually what actually occurred. That was last week, and so there may be a week into whatever investigation that they will and are conducting. He was not able to give me a timeline in terms of a turnaround, but I have no problem with circling back to Adam as time goes on to see where this is in the process. But in terms of just process or procedure, they basically conduct an investigation, interviewing people. I've been advised that the videos and the statements, or video, one singularly, video and statements plurally, have been received by Adam. I hope that kind of covers or answers your question, Elder Melanie.
Thank you, and that does give perspective. I am concerned that having been present at the meeting, I have not been asked by whomever initiated the statement given and statement writing. I have not been asked to share any of that information. I don't know if that's a matter of oversight or disrespect, but the reality is I was there from beginning to end. I have keen senses, and even though I didn't see what happened, I was a keen ear witness to everything that went on that night until I left. So having said that, I will refrain from any further disclosure of what took place that night so that the proper procedure and protocol can be followed. Because from what I'm understanding, many have chimed in who weren't there and whose determination as to what happened or what should happen next is predicated on testimony that may or may not be in accord with what actually happened. I haven't seen or heard any of the testimony. That's just my perspective.
Thank you, Elder Melanie. Any other commissioner want to weigh in on that issue?
I do. So, outside officials will be handling what happened that night. Am I correct?
The Office of Inspector General will be conducting an investigation into that incident.
So what about the actions leading up to the incident?
I'm not sure what you mean.
I think it's some things that we need to address as a commission, as CPOC, that led up to it. The text messages, her issue was her name being spoken on in the meeting. And she said she never received an apology, right? An apology was given, but it was when she wasn't in the meeting, right? Outside of that, Danny sent text messages saying protect Talia at all costs because she was there. Do we address those or do we let the office address them?
I think that if that's something that we want to address, we can address that. But I think it also it's a thin line and it's delicate because we don't want to do anything that impacts or affects the Inspector General's investigation. However, if there are other things that are separate and apart from their investigation that we can address and we should address it amongst ourselves. What I'm hearing from you, it sounds like something that we may be able to address if it relates to something that's not directly implicated in the incident that happened that night. Sounds like what you're talking about is things that add up to that. I think that is we should and we could address those issues. Again, as long as it doesn't impact the separate investigation that's going on. I will also say, while this is an open forum, and I think that we should and can speak freely, I think that we should kind of hop the way that Elder Melanie handled it, because it is an ongoing investigation, and there may be people in this meeting who are witnesses, potential witnesses, and I think that we should just be careful not to taint anybody who may potentially be interviewed as part of that investigation with our disclosures here tonight.
So are you, so we wait for the office to conduct their investigation and then come together as a commission to decide the next steps. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yes and no. So here's the thing, right? My experience dealing with the Office of Inspector General, right? They'll conduct their independent investigation and they'll provide a fact-finding report, which basically says whatever the facts are that they come up with. They're not a body that's going to say, well, we suggest you do this or we suggest you do that. They'll, for the most part, come up with a fact-finding report. Then based on the facts, right, let's say hypothetically, whatever the situation is, let's say they say they didn't find any wrongdoing, a policy violation, whatever. Or they didn't find any criminal violations. Let's go with the criminal aspect. Let's say they investigate and they say they don't find any criminal violations. We could then take whatever report that they come up with and say, okay, there are no criminal violations. However, there are serious policy considerations that we want to address, and we can then address the policy considerations. However, again, depending on what the issue is, we don't necessarily have to wait until the outcome of their investigation.
May I speak, Chairman?
Sure. Absolutely.
I do have a concern with the Inspector General's investigating this because I know for a fact that some of the staff members do come from the Inspector General's office. So would they be biased? Could be. I don't know. I don't know who the Inspector General is, and I don't know if it would be done properly. So there is a bit of concern. I was hoping either for the controller or the managing director to be involved in this also, because I'm not an inspector general, but I feel that they may be a bit biased. So I wanted to share that concern with you and with the rest of the commissioners and our community people.
To that, I'll say, the person that I know that I met with, Adam, I know him on a professional level. I don't know him. I know him to be a straight shooter, so to speak. But in terms of another investigating body, I don't know, and I'll ask Judge Lerner or Anthony to weigh in. I don't know that the controller's office or the managing director's office has an investigating body.
Okay, thank you.
I've been in the managing director's office, and investigations are not something that the managing director's office is designed or has the capacity to handle. The controller's investigations, which I'm also familiar with from my time in the managing director's office, have to do with financial issues and the expenditure, the appropriate or inappropriate expenditure, or effective or ineffective expenditure of city funds. So the Inspector General's office is really the office within the city government that is designed to and has the specific responsibility for these kinds of investigations. I don't know the individuals in the office who are going to handle this, but I do know that when I was at the managing director's office, and I did have the opportunity to work with the OIG, they take their work very, very seriously, and they take their responsibility as an absolutely independent investigative agency very seriously. And unless there was something a lot more specific or a lot more directly indicating some specific bias in this case, they're the organization and they're the people that I think we would like to have doing an investigation. As Jolly said, what we do with the results of their investigation is up to us. But I think we ought to let them, and when we're asked to help them or support them in their investigation and see what they come up with before we take any further steps.
Chairman, may I speak again?
Yes.
Okay. I truly understand what Judge Lerner is trying to share with me and with the rest of the people that are online here. One of the reasons why we were created as commissioner for CPOC was to bring transparency and accountability for certain things that take place amongst our police officers. So my thing is that this has to be transparent, and we have community people here that want to know what happened that last Tuesday. So I trust your judgment, Chairman Jolly, with Mr. Adams, and I'm looking forward to speaking to him if you need for me to speak to him. But one of the things as the commissioner, and I'm going to repeat this again, I will not lie. I did not lie. And it was a big racket, and I'm sure Elder Du Bois felt the same way. Commissioner Du Bois felt the same way, that it became a bit nerve-wracking. But we are going to be transparent, I hope, and accountability. But it's not trying to get everyone fired or everyone crucified, but the right thing must be done. And if I'm speaking too much, I apologize, but that's who I am. Transparency and accountability is a must. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other thoughts from any commissioners on that? At this time, I will, if the commissioner is okay with it, I'll open it up to the community for questions related to what we just discussed, with the understanding that it is an ongoing investigation, and there will be limited information that we can probably disclose or get into. But if there's any questions, Anthony, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to say from a staff perspective that I agree completely. I think that all information should be brought to light. And in light of the fact that there is an ongoing investigation with the OIG, I won't get into any specifics, but I will say we fully support a full and total investigation into this incident. And the more light that shines on it, the better. And staff will fully comply with any and all information requests at any time and under any circumstances. And I look forward to the result of the Office of the Inspector General investigation.
Thank you, Anthony. If there are any community members and I have two screens that I'm pulling back and forth. So if you either want to raise your hand, if you have anything to say, I'm not really checking the chat right now. Okay, I don't see any hands or anyone that wants to be heard on this issue. All right, I want to move forward, go back to the agenda for a second. The next item on the agenda is the CPOC mission statement. There was some discussion regarding the mission statement. Go ahead, Samantha. Samantha put in the chat that she wanted to speak. I'm not sure what's going on.
Do I have permission?
Yes.
Excuse me for a moment. I'm trying not to get emotional over this. I think that a lot of this got very out of hand when people started digging in their heels over simple errors. And when I called out those errors and wasn't getting any answers, I came to the public forum. And when I didn't get help in the public forum and felt as if, and it's really sad because we're not in high school, but started to feel very bullied. And then to find out all that was said about me and circling up, all I did was ask Talia Grimmage a question. I asked her from a distance. I didn't yell at her or scream at her. I've sent all of you the full unedited video so you can see for yourself. Mr. Grimmage, I forgive you. I don't want to press charges against you, sir. I'm an old white lady. It devastates me to think that I would want to press charges against a man who has a solid standing in society. So I forgive you. And I hope that you, sir, will also find it in your heart to speak the truth. I'm devastated by this because it's the example of how other people feel they've been treated. I'm loud, I'm boisterous, I will not go away, and the more I'm pushed away, the more I dig in. When all I asked for was to be represented for a sexual assault where an officer gave my information to somebody else, they refused to investigate it, and I was threatened. I asked for help, and I got none. And I keep getting re-traumatized from the assault to the way that I've been treated just for asking for help. So if you are angry with me on a personal level, I get it. But all I've ever asked is that you just do your job. How many other women out there have been treated the same way by this officer? You didn't let me have my voice. And so I brought it to an open forum after the meeting, not in the middle of it, not in the beginning of it, after. And I apologized to Ms. Grimmage if she felt attacked. But she already thought she was going to be attacked by some sort of prejudicial bias. The texts alone show that. And so will the multitude of emails that I've already gotten through Freedom of Information. It's sad. And it's sad that all of this time is being spent on this issue instead of dealing with the larger issue in whole, which is making sure our citizens are safe in our community. We reform the police department and victims' voices are being heard. And here we are dealing with this. I don't know what to say, but thank you to the commissioner for hearing me. Thank you for taking the time out to look at this on both sides. Thank you for allowing me to speak about the issues instead of just listening to the one-sided argument that had been presented to you. Thank you. And I want you to know, I am severely, extremely mortified and traumatized by this. To be a survivor of kidnap, assault, and then to survive that and fight that for years, and then to have it happen again, and then to have a total stranger put his hands on me for no reason. I don't think you understand what it does to someone such as myself, other survivors who have been beaten. We are on edge. We are in fear, but yet we are brave and strong to go out in society and still fight for what we think is right, regardless of strangers putting their hands on them or being called crazy because I blow the whistle or being gaslighted because I ask you to do your job. It's devastating, and I really think we can do better. Thank you.
Ma'am, I just want to say thank you for your courage. Thank you for being here. Thank you for speaking up. As we previously said, I particularly, and I think I speak on behalf of the remaining commissioners, we haven't made a decision, right? With the exception of those that are there that potentially witness anything. But I just want to extend on behalf of the Citizens Police Oversight Commission, regardless of any fact-finding investigation, the way that you feel, right? They say that people won't remember what you say, but they remember how you make them feel. And it seems like as a Citizens Police Oversight Commission organization, we didn't make you feel that good. So on behalf of the commission, I apologize. I want you to know that we take this matter serious, which is why we're here tonight having this meeting. It's the primary reason we're here tonight having this unscheduled meeting, which is also why we're cooperating with the Inspector General's office. And we just want to make sure that a fair and impartial investigation is going to be conducted. So again, ma'am, I apologize. I thank you for being here, and we're taking it serious.
I want one other thing to be known. I am not going to sue this committee or any commission over this. This is not about a personal litigation. This is about improving things. That is my word to you, regardless of how things turn out. This is not about suing for myself and taking the taxpayers' money. It's about conserving the money for the taxpayers and doing the right job. And I won't interrupt again. I'm sorry.
With that being said, I have a motion that I would like to make. I think we spoke about it privately, but it's a motion that I'd like to make publicly. I motion that nobody be excluded from none of the civilians or anybody else be excluded from our meetings without a commission majority.
I second.
I'm not 100% sure I understand the motion. I'm saying in terms of excluding people.
Excluding anybody, blocking anybody from any platform or meeting or town hall that we have without a vote approval from the majority of the commissioners, I apologize.
I think that we have something in the bylaws that touches on this issue. I don't really, I mean, we can just move forward with the vote. I was gonna say, I can't really fathom, with the exception of someone being unruly or not conducting themselves in an appropriate manner, that we would exclude anyone from a meeting. But, you know, I'll just let the motion play out.
Thank you.
I have a question about the motion, and it's something I'm utterly uncertain about. But I, for some reason, have some understanding that there already are some City of Philadelphia rules and regulations that govern this subject of whether or not someone or anyone can be kept out of or prevented from participating in a public meeting held by any city agency or organization. We ought to make sure we know whether or not something like that exists, and if so, what it says, before we, I think before we vote on a motion that may or may not be consistent with some overriding authority.
Well, I've read it.
So what I think, right, because I mean, we can certainly have discussion and everything like that. We typically probably had the discussion before the motion. The motion has been raised by Hassan and it's been seconded. So the motion has to play out, which then therefore requires a vote by all commissioners, those in favor or against. But we can certainly have more discussion on it prior to that. That is, unless the motion is tabled. Hassan, you raised the motion. Just let me know how you want to proceed, whether or not you want to have all commissioners vote on it, or if you want to go into an executive session, just let me know.
We can have all the commissioners vote on it. I just say that as far as the city legislation behind it, the rules behind it, we've had it's left up to the interpretation of the reader, right? Of what a disruption is, because I could challenge you and it still may not be a disruption, but to other people it may be a disruption. So that's the reason I said, as a commission whole, we should be the ones deciding who's blocked, because we don't want people to get blocked and being caused as a disruption just because they challenge the mechanics of the operations of CPOC. So yeah, we could vote right now.
Okay. With that being said, since I cannot see all the commissioners on one screen, is there a way to
Call them out?
Sure, we can call them out. 1 moment. All right. I'm going to abstain from this because I just want to check the bylaws. So I'm going to abstain for this, for the purpose of the voting. Next in line is going to be Ambrosia.
I will also abstain until I read the bylaws and make sure that it's in accordance with city rules and regulations.
Judge Lerner.
Abstain for the same reasons.
1 second. Hassan, you're in favor?
Yeah, I'm in favor.
John?
You're on mute, John.
Give me a
Oh.
second.
John, take your time.
So I'm all for citizens being able to have a voice, and making sure that we are not excluding any voice in these meetings, if it doesn't go against the policies. So with that being said, I'm in favor. I'm in favor.
Thank you, John. I will put the caveat out there though. The motion was not as long as it's in accordance with such and such policies. It's kind of like a real broad motion. But thank you for that. Elder Melanie DeBoos.
Yes, thank you. In light of the fact that our legislation clearly demands that we present ourselves as accountable and transparent, I recommend that we move forward with a motion to not silence those to whom we have signed up to be accountable. And if that wasn't clearly articulated, then the manner in
Yes.
which Commissioner Bennett presented it, it sounds like a yes to me. Accountability and transparency are our mandates.
Okay, thank you. And if I can, I'm gonna jump in for a second and bear with me because our bylaws, as I mentioned, I was able to pull them up. Under Article 4, meetings of the commission, going all the way down, there's a section J, public participating guidelines. Bear with me because I'm just going to, this is very long. I'm going to try to jump to the relevant portions. All right, so J1, I'll go through J first. All citizens deserve the right to be heard. The Citizens Police Oversight Commission's intention is to establish fair and orderly rules that will enable the commission to deliberate without interruption and allow ample opportunity for those citizens who want to participate and be heard. There are two distinct opportunities for community involvement: the public comment portion of the agenda items, which occurs at the end of board business and prior to adjournment, and two, the community forum. All commission hearings and meetings are open to the public except for restricted executive sessions to discuss strictly delineated matters. At the conclusion of the commission's business, the commission will open its meeting for the public for community comments. It talks about how long attendees may speak. Okay, part 8, in the event decorum or good order of the commission meeting is obstructed or interfered with by attendees, the chair may, at the chair's discretion, adjourn such meeting until such time as good order may be established. So I mean, that's why I said initially, and I'll let the vote continue. That's why I said initially, I believe that we already have in our bylaws, we touched on this, we already thought about this. So, I'll just let the vote continue as is. I hope that might have been helpful, but I think the next person in line is Mary Ellis.
I also agree. Everyone should have their voice heard just as long as it's in a respectful manner. And I think Hassan made a really good point when he said how someone perceives a message is not necessarily the way that someone else will perceive it. But I think that is very important because we're also human. and just being respectful to one another is crucial. So I'll also agree.
Okay, thank you, Mary Ellis. Rosara?
Yes, I agree also with my other commissioners that yes, allowing the community to speak. Yes. Thank you.
And Hakeem?
I agree as well.
So let's see, yes, all right. There are 7, six. Got my my crosses messed up. 6, the motion carries. There are 6 commissioners that voted in favor. There are 3 commissioners that abstained from voting on this matter. And Hassan, again, could you just clarify what the motion was for? You're on mute, Hassan.
The motion was to allow the community to speak, and in a case where an alleged disruption is raised by anyone, it should be brought to a commission for quorum vote. So we can decide as a commissioner, should they be blocked from the meetings or the social medias or whatever alleged disruption comes up, we can actually see it and then decide to block them, or how to move forward on it.
Can I say something?
I also wanted to point out something. I know now that shifted a little bit in regards to social media. I did read that there is a policy in place for the city of Philadelphia in regards to when people are kind of their access for our public platforms is taken away. So as long as that doesn't interfere with that, because I do agree that we have to give people a voice, but we also have to be mindful that we don't make yeah, I'm gonna leave it there.
I agree.
Can I speak? This is John Solomon.
Yeah.
For those that chose abstain from a vote, is there a timeline on when you can give a yay or a nay, or there's no need?
I was gonna say not even that there's no need. In my experience, John, when someone abstains from voting, it means they're not voting yes or no, right? So what happens is us, particularly in our structure, let's say 5 people say that they're not voting, and something can't pass because we would need 5 to vote yes. So it's basically it's not a yes and it's not a no.
Okay.
Well, as one of the people who abstained initially, already in the course of this discussion, 2 things have happened which would affect my position. One is the motion as Hassan restated it after the vote doesn't seem to me to be exactly the motion as I understood him to be making originally, and is more, and also Jolly enlightened us as to the bylaws. So the motion that Hassan made after the vote seems to me to be much more in accord with what I understand now the bylaws say than the motion that he made originally. So if we were voting on that, the second one of the motions, I might not have abstained. And certainly, if I'm not abstaining, I'm for anything that promotes inclusiveness and transparency. But it's, I think, speaking for myself, I'm not in the same position I was when we first took the vote.
Thank you for that, Judge Lerner. John, I hope that makes sense. Let me know if it doesn't. Happy to try to flush that out.
Clear.
And again, for me, it was from a perspective without like visually, more visual person, kind of like it would help me to like read word for word what the motion is for, just to make sure that it's consistent with what our bylaws are, because I believe the bylaws to have already established, conduct and behavior. So I hope that was helpful, John. Anthony, your hand is up. I'm not sure if that's a new hand or an old hand.
No, it's a new hand. I just wanted to make a suggestion that that motions be written down and read and voted on as written down and read, only because it makes it very clear. I know that the language when spoken changed subtly I know the intention was the same the whole way through, but the language changed subtly, and that changed opinions as the vote went on. I think if a motion is made, a motion should be written down, put in the chat, and then read appropriately, and then voted on as written. So to make sure everyone's vote is clear on what they're voting on, and that the public understands what's being voted on in real time. That's just a suggestion.
In addition, or more than that, we will polish our parliamentary procedures so that once a motion is asked for by the chair, the motion will be given, and yes, we can write that down in the chat. And then the chair will ask for discussion. And after that discussion has been had, we'll ask for a vote. So we're learning and growing, but we will polish our practices so that these kind of missteps won't happen. But as of now, that motion has carried.
Yep.
Anyone else want to be heard on that? Because we'll move on to the next order of business. All right, I'm gonna move on for the next order of business, just for the sake of just trying to be respectful of everyone's time. The next thing that I just want to address, because this is something that came up, and I'm gonna ask Anthony to provide the community as well as the commissioners some background on this. It is one moment. It is an acronym that I have not memorized. Okay, here we go. The American Society of Evidence-Based Policing Conference, which Anthony, if you can just tell the fellow commissioners and community what that is, how CPOC is involved, and I'm sure that there may be some questions from the commissioners on that.
Sure. This is a conference. It's basically a police reform, police oversight related conference, issues that relate to our industry. We had a submission for proposal for a presentation that was accepted for a policy project that we're currently conducting on body-worn camera footage, and it was accepted, and it's a huge honor, and we're very excited to present at this conference and present CPOC's work nationally.
I have a question.
Sure.
Why were we notified so shortly of this conference, and why was it posted right away before it was discussed with the commissioners?
We notified you guys almost a month before the conference, and
No, we didn't get that. We got an
yeah,
email.
it was the email was April 20th. The conference is mid-May.
No, we talking about before you guys got approved. Well, I'm speaking out of turn. I'm gonna let Rosario clarify.
No, I saw this on Facebook, and then we received an email. And I know for a fact that I'm trying to keep up with the emails and with our schedules and everything, and I did not see this back then. Now I felt, and I believe we received an email from a wonderful lady by the name of Gail Lurks. Am I pronouncing your name right?
Slacks.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you. That we were not aware. Honestly, we were not aware. None of the commissioners were invited to attend this conference. And if we're going to be transparent, I am letting you know that we were not included in this conference. None of us were asked to attend. I personally cannot fly because of my vision. All right, because of the cabin pressure, but I'm sure there are other wonderful commissioners that can attend, but we were not aware of this, just to let you know. that we were not. And I look forward to meeting with you and Mr. Let me see if I can find him. I just saw him and, you know, bear with me. He was Mr. Clemens, am I correct?
Yes.
Yes, I look forward to meeting you also, Mr. Clemens. So I look forward to that we can all sit with you, all the commissioners. So, yes.
I mean, I
Thank you.
can say that this was done in normal conduct of business, and we did the same procedure that we did with the last conference at NACOL, and notification was done the same way and in the same vein, and there were no complaints at that time.
Okay, so I'm challenging. And if I'm disruptive, Chairman, I apologize, but I don't remember, and I really don't remember the last conference. I just started seeing pictures on Facebook from the last conference, but I was not aware, and I am sure that I'm not sure, I'm not speaking for my other commissioners, that they were aware of this conference. And this is taxpayers' money. So I will let you take the floor, Chairman Jolly.
Are there any other commissioners with any questions, comments or concerns? Go ahead, Judge.
There's two separate things here. One, the idea that the staff in the course of the regular business of the commission is working on a project as important as anything having to do with the use of police body cameras. It certainly oughtn't to come as a surprise to anybody, and isn't the kind of thing that I would think that a commission or a board of directors has to approve in advance. The idea that the work that this commission is doing has generated an invitation to present before a national audience of similar organizations. What we're doing in Philadelphia seems to me to be a clear reason for pride on our behalf. On the other hand, it's also absolutely clear to me that especially now, when this is the commissioners, we all are new to this process, that it's extremely important that commission members, some number, some delegation from the commission itself, be part of the Philadelphia CPOC delegation to this conference, and that is as much deserving as being paid for out of whatever CPOC's appropriation turns out to be, as is paying for staff members to be there. So to me, it seems that what we ought to be focusing on primarily is not that our organization has been asked to make a presentation at this national conference, but how do we decide how many commissioners and who those commissioners will be that will be part of our delegation to the conference?
Well, as one sort of housekeeping, we did present this project to the commissioners on October 27th of last year, in writing and on video and in person, actually, at a presentation for our policy unit. And as far as attending a conference, it was my understanding prior that non-city employees could not attend conferences at the expense of the city of Philadelphia. In an abundance of caution, we checked with the managing director's office today, and they told us that was true. That, however, we we can and will support the commissioners in pursuing that further, if you guys would like to. But it was my understanding previously that non-city employees could not be compensated for travel and accommodations to attend conferences, and that was confirmed by the managing director's office today, actually.
Well, I don't think we ought to take no for an answer.
No, I agree, and we're happy to fight for you on that regard.
Well, I think some of us ought to be part of that fight.
Absolutely.
If I'm not mistaken, and again, I apologize, Chairman Jolly, for speaking out very quickly. When it comes to cameras for the police officers, I don't think they've been trained on that. From the impression I got from the police department yesterday, because I'm in the civilian police academy now. I believe the police officers are the ones that are training people on the camera. So when did staff get trained on that?
I'm not sure what you mean by trained on that.
Well,
Trained
trained on using the camera.
Well, staff doesn't use
body
the camera. Staff doesn't use the camera. They're reviewing body camera footage.
They're reviewing.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm a bit confused. I like to see the body cameras myself.
Rosar, I think, and Anthony can certainly correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what he's saying is that the purpose of the conference is, I say, their policy unit has been reviewing body-worn camera footage from the city and maybe put together a presentation on whatever their findings were or are regarding that, not that the employees are trained on the use of the body-worn camera.
Thank you, Chairman Jelly, for correcting me on that. Thank you.
Does anyone else want to be heard on this particular issue?
I would like to say that in light of this discussion, I believe that the real issue is not whether or not commissioners were invited. I believe that as a commissioner, I did not feel adequately informed. And you have said, interim director, that you let us know in October, and it has been my experience as a doctoral student and as a master's level student that those presentation of papers, they do happen 6 months or so prior to the actual presentation date. Inasmuch as the staff submitted an application to present, I believe that it would have simply been a matter of respect for the staff, you, Mr. Arati, to say to the commissioners, this is the conference for which we are applying. Should we get accepted, here is an abstract of our presentation. You can further summarize the abstract, or you can discuss the nature of what it is that you plan to do. Now, the objection is not necessarily to your attending the conference. The objection is to the fact that you know, Mr. Arachi, that we are all in the training and development process of being a member of the Citizens Police Oversight Commission. And while you say that this was told, and this was told, and that was told, we clearly are not getting the level of understanding as to the moves that the staff is making. And when we got the notice on or about the 20th, you were far down the road. Now, it may be the notion of some commissioners that we don't have to know, but when our community asks of our understanding and we can't give an answer, then that's a problem. And once again, I don't know if this is oversight on your part or disrespect.
Well, I can assure you it's not disrespect. We presented this the same way we presented the last presentation that we did with NACOL. And we did it in the same manner, and there were no objections then. And there was no reason for us to think that we should have behaved any differently in this case based on past practice. We alerted all of the commissioners comprehensively, and actually multiple forms in this particular case, about our policy work, what was going on, and how it was, and what was sort of on the horizon. Even in this case, it was we notified everyone of the conference almost a month out. Did not it certainly wasn't disrespect, but it was we certainly thought that we had given notice and that the commissioners were aware of the projects we were working on.
Clearly, you were thinking wrong. And so unless this process and this practice changes, I believe I can't speak for all of my fellow commissioners, but you will be challenged. And if it's at the last minute, you will be challenged because it's inappropriate for the staff, as you represented, to continue to do things that we don't have clarity on. Because again, when our community asks what's going on and how is this happening or how is that happening, and we can't give an intelligent answer, it's because we haven't been given the appropriate level of information.
Commissioner Du Bois, thank you, because I agree with you.
Further, we asked, well, I know I personally asked, what was CPOC working on in a public meeting? I asked, what was the analyst? Did we have any presentations? Did we have any documents? And I was told no. It was in the April meeting or the March meeting, somewhere around there. So I think when we ask, we should be provided, okay, we have a presentation that we're trying to make, that we worked with PPD to present. The last, I don't know, where did you guys go last time?
NACOL,
NACOL.
Texas.
NACOL. I know it was a surprise to a lot of commissioners that you guys went there. And I would like to believe it's because we were new to the commission. We still were new to even the city emails. We still was trying to figure the rules, the policy, and the legislations out as commissioners. So when when it popped up on the social media page that you guys went to, I know that's how I found about it, that you guys went to NACOL, it was a shock to me. This was a shock to me because just a month back, I had requested what is being worked on in CPOC, and I received no answers. Hold on. You weren't in the meeting. Danny was in the meeting, but that's the answer I received is we didn't have anything in the works in CPOC.
Well, this particular project was mentioned in the March meeting in the executive director's report, and it's referenced on the slide.
Yeah,
Yeah, we looked later at that microscopic pinning on the slide, but the bottom line is we don't feel informed.
No, I don't.
And then
to
the
it.
other thing is, unless you have that conversation, now you talk to the office of the managing director today to make sure you were covered. But the reality is, if we had a viable conversation, there's some of us that can pay our own way. So that may not have been an issue, but we have to have the conversation. And we're in a learning curve. And just to just shine some light on something else, we're sitting for 3 hours. Well, they cut it, so it was 2.5 hours in a meeting, learning about autism in children, when there are so many other things to cover, and we're not being that information is not being disseminated. And then we end up with information that really needs to be honed in on. We're not getting that. So I find that your explanation and your explanations in the past have been lackluster. And that has to change, because I refuse to keep sitting as a commissioner, allowing the staff to just do what staff wants to do, and the commissioners, and I'm going to say this gingerly, are being caught on the blind side.
Elder Melanie, the meeting with the intersection between autism and policing is a tremendously important local and national topic that relates to the community. And it is.
Mr.
I
Arachi,
think you're missing it.
I'm an
No, I wasn't
educator.
done talking. But
I am an educator for 40 plus years. I believe I understand the intersection. But again, that comes to the point that we are being given what we're going to have a meeting on and not being offered a seat at the table. If you're not seated at the table, you're damn sure on the menu, and that has to stop. That's my point. I don't need you to elaborate on the importance of autism and police. And clearly the community didn't need that either, because there were probably 2 to 3 members in that meeting from the community.
Yes, there were.
I can also say that, I mean, as in that meeting in October 27th, we gave a comprehensive presentation on all things that CPOC was doing in all units. The policy report was 20 pages long in and of itself of topics. We have also tried to engage commissioners at all times throughout the last year on policy work for ideas and thoughts and vision. As far as what's going on, I mean, we have tried to be as transparent as possible and keeping the commission informed.
Well, may I, Chairman?
Rosa, I've been meaning to tell you on that. You do not
Okay.
have to ask.
Okay, so not long ago, after the incident happened, I asked for a old report. If a police officer has been disciplined, may we see the old report and what was the outcome of this police officer being disciplined? This is what I wanted to see. I didn't want to see a new report because we have not seen any new reports and we have been given permission to see any new reports. But I wanted to see an old report to see the outcome of this police officer being disciplined, and I have yet to see anything.
Is it a specific internal affairs case? Is that what you mean?
Any report, something just to show us, me, and it can be shared with the rest of the commissioners, what is being done in the past, because PAC was at one time CPOC, but now it's CPOC. So I want to see what took place with PAC, if there were reports done, if there was disciplinary action taken against a police officer for their behavior. So this is why I requested, can I see a simple report if the officer was disciplined from when you were PAC? Because right now for CPOC, we have not seen anything. And that was my concern. I kept asking, when can we start? When can we see? And I was told that we were not permitted to see anything.
No, well, the Police Advisory Commission didn't conduct investigations or discipline on any police officer. That wasn't part of their function.
Okay. I went back to October 11th. I don't have anything about it. Zoom, nothing.
The date was October 27th. You were actually physically present at the presentation.
October 27th.
Yeah, it was in the
West Philly.
No, it was in our building on the 18th floor in the conference room. And then
I
the
wasn't
next day
there.
we forwarded the video of
remember.
it with the materials attached to all commissioners via email.
Well, I don't agree to it.
I remember the meeting. I don't remember.
Yeah, we gave a handout at the meeting, and then the next day we forwarded a video of the presentations along with links to the folders and all of the materials.
All right, so I'm gonna attempt to wrap it up. I think there are two separate issues, whether or not the substance of the upcoming presentation was previously provided versus the notice or heads up in terms of the attendance at the presentation. I think that what I'm hearing is clear from the commission is that we would like more advance notice and more to be included in those conversations. Did I get that somewhat okay, fellow commissioners?
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay. So I think that, I mean, unless anyone else wants to be heard really on that issue, I think that there were some other issues on our agenda, and I don't want to not discuss them, although we do have a meeting. Next Tuesday, we will have a meeting as well. So anything we don't get to today, we will try to get to it on our next meeting. The next issue in no particular order, and I'll just throw it out to any fellow commissioner. There are three things that I have left up here: hiring update, budget update, CPOC mission statement. Anyone have interest in talking about any one of those things more than the other?
the budget.
Okay.
I would actually like to talk about hiring if possible.
All right, so let's try to do those two things, budget then hiring. Hassan, did you have a specific question about the budget?
Yes, we actually, we left. And, what you say? I missed
Nothing,
it.
go ahead, I'm sorry.
We had questions about the salaries in the budget. I wanted to know if anything was adjusted. If anything changed. Anthony.
Oh, no, I haven't received any formal guidance from the commission.
Formal guidance, we all showed this a displeasure in how the salaries were budgeted, were placed in the budget.
Don't say all.
Well, you're not you. I did.
I'm sorry if I may, Hassan. What I will say though is, at least I'll speak for myself. My impression is that we collectively as a commission, we're going to tell them what we wanted because we were not comfortable, like you said, with the salaries that were there. I more so had a question in terms of there was supposed to be a hearing, and I tried to follow those hearings for 2 days, and I didn't see any presentation. So I'm not sure if a presentation went forward or it was just postponed.
Oh, it wasn't postponed. We made no budget ask. The commission didn't provide, we didn't, a budget ask wasn't approved by the commission, so we made none.
Okay.
And I see your hand, but I'm gonna we'll go to see if any commissioners have any questions or anything first. Any other commissioners have any questions or comments as it relates to the budget?
Well, I have a question. When we first saw the budget and were not satisfied with the reasons that that the information that we were being given about certain expenditures, including certain salary increases, we passed a motion at that meeting telling the interim executive director that he had no authority to ask for anything more than what the city had recommended until further action by the commissioners. And after that meeting, we also passed another motion which put a freeze on hiring. Then my recollection is when we had our meeting at Elder Melanie's headquarters, we agreed that we needed a budget committee, a few committees, including a budget committee, which, as I understand it, the committee was going to meet with the interim executive director and other staff people involved in preparing the budget, discuss these issues that we had expressed concern about, and bring something by way of specific proposals or recommendations back to the commission. As far as I know, that hasn't been, we haven't done that yet. And so I don't really see where we've given any directions to to Anthony or anybody else to do anything other than freeze hiring and don't ask for anything more than what the city's recommended for CPOC for the coming fiscal year until you get further instructions from us. We're really good at complaining when we think the staff hasn't been giving us information. We're not so good at following up ourselves on what we say, and we insist is our responsibility to get information, to discuss the information, and provide directions to the staff, including directions with regard to these budgetary issues. So I go back to the email that John sent out, and I think that some of our concerns and some of our criticism ought to be, we're responsible. It's not just the staff that doesn't provide the information we want. It's us that doesn't get the information we need and provide clear directions to the staff on major issues where we are the ultimate deciders.
I agree with you, Judge Lerner. One of the things, and we can get the directives from the police department, and that is a part of our training in the legislation on Chapter 9, page 4. It says that we're supposed to get trained on the police department directives, and we haven't gotten that yet. And I want to share this with our community people. There are things that we still have not been trained on. So pardon me the way I'm going to put this, but if you can take a trip to Vegas, please finish training us so we can help our communities. This is what I want. I want to do everything I can to help our communities, not just the 15 where I'm at, but the whole entire city. So there are things here that have not been done yet that I've been reading the legislation. I know Mr. Khan wants to make a comment, so I'm going to be quiet. Thank you.
Well, right, and I'll just ask Mr. To hang on if you were referring to Mr. Andy King. Excuse me, I saw a hand go up for her sign. We haven't heard from you. If you wanted to say something on the way in.
If we're still on topic of the budget, I think we initially sent out an email a couple of weeks ago for the committees. So I think it's in our best interest that we privately discuss the conversations that needed to be had for the different committees that we wanted to take on before we bring up problems about a budget that we're supposed to look at and approve anyway.
I agree.
Me too.
Any other commissioners want to weigh in on that issue?
I agree. This is Commissioner Santiago.
And I want to add that we as commissioners have to commit to 100% engagement at meetings. We can do things without a quorum. But the way that we articulated those committees, we have to have a full body in order to delegate or assign tasks and responsibilities. And the reality is, and I've said this to our chair, for the next little while, we need to meet more often than we meet. Because in order to get some things off the ground, we have already spent nearly a year dilly-dallying and having been spoon-fed things that are just not appropriate to our diet and our well-being as commissioners. So I have recommended that he propose that we meet more often, even if it's for an intense period of time until we get these T's crossed and these I's dotted because I believe that that is part and parcel to the reason that we're not getting a clear understanding from staff, and staff has been opportunistic in moving down the field without adequately informing us of the directions that they're taking. And it doesn't matter. You can say it to me 45 times, but I have not felt adequately informed. And it is your responsibility to make sure that we as commissioners are.
I agree.
Thank you, Elder Melanie. Mr. Andy Kang, and if I mispronounce your name, I apologize.
No worries. I mispronounced my own name. I grew up very Americanized. It's Kang, but I go by Kang. Good evening, everyone. Hi. I just first of all, I just want to thank you all for holding this space. I'm relatively new to Philadelphia. I moved from Chicago about a year and a half ago and was involved with the city Commission on Human Relations back there, as well as the state Hate Crimes Commission. So I know it's hard. These conversations obviously are very challenging. So I appreciate you all leaning in and doing the messiness and trying to figure it out. So I do appreciate that. I just wanted to note, because I did hear the earlier speaker, I'm assuming that there's no special carve out in the CBA with FOP for officers accused of sexual assault or domestic violence. If that could maybe be reconsidered in the next round of negotiations, I know that's a ways off. That would seem to be a good idea. But my question was more around budget, and then Mr. Hatchett around procedure. I want to make sure I'm not disruptive, but there are a series of questions that I had as I've gotten to know Philadelphia and some of the issues here. And unfortunately, the sheriff's office doesn't apparently have something like this, the equivalent. Some of my questions are directed to them, and I couldn't figure out where to ask them. So I'm asking them here. But on the budget, has there been any discussion about not increasing the budget for Philly PD until Act 111 is amended, or the heart and lung policy is significantly reformed? And the reason I ask that is, if they're having recruitment issues for the 500 open head count, but we have officers that are not on the streets, that could be on the streets, I'm just going to say that charitably, right? Perhaps that creates the wrong incentive and message to put more money into that current system as is. And then for a future date, in Chicago, we come head first, head on. We don't sneak around from people's backs, but I'm just going to name it. I've been looking a lot at what happened in Camden, New Jersey, right across the river. And I'm not saying this specific sheriff. I'm not going to get involved with the campaigns there. But it occurred to me that there might be an opportunity for a public safety force to be stood up that doesn't qualify as police. That could be an end around the CBA and Act 111. And so I was just curious if I could bring that up at the appropriate time in the future. I'd be really interested in the idea of us maybe creating a UPS to the Postal Service, a competitive public safety entity that maybe the folks of City Council in Philadelphia could choose who they want to fund more because of the results that come of it.
May I speak? Mr. King, thank you a million times for bringing up about domestic violence involving police officers. Before I became commissioner, I was very outspoken in regards to police officer involved in domestic violence. I am a survivor, and there are many of us, not only in the Philadelphia area, but also in New Jersey, in Kansas City, in Tacoma, Washington, that have been speaking out about police officer involved in domestic violence. Several of my sister survivors made it, but there are some that have been killed by their husbands who are police officers. One is, and as a matter of fact, one did survive here in Philadelphia, named Jill Borrella, who I'm very good friends with. But the fear that she carried by speaking out, her husband shot her 4 times and she survived, but she still carries that fear, and he ended up killing himself. So there is a problem in regards to police officer involved in domestic violence. And I want to thank you for bringing that up, because it is a serious matter that has been gone on deaf ears. So thank you so much for bringing that up. I am sure that our chairman can share with you what we are trying to do. And I hope to see more of you and to meet many of these amazing people that I see online, because it is a passion of mine, not only in regards to domestic violence, but what we can do for our community. So thank you so much. Thank you.
And Mr. King, I think that you have, your questions are great questions, but they're also loaded questions. And also, I think some of it has to do with, I think I'll be the first to admit I'm ignorant in terms of Chicago Police Department, how they operate. I don't necessarily believe that Chicago PD did it any justice to understand. So I'll put my email in the chat. I would certainly welcome if you and I could connect maybe offline and kind of go through and flush that out, especially it's loaded in terms of the way that Philadelphia, the FOP is the collective bargaining unit behind the Philadelphia Police Department. And they might as well be another, and these are just my words speaking, not on behalf of the commission, but they might as well be another branch of the government, right? You might as well have the mayor and then the FOP. They're that strong. So feel free to email me. I'd love to connect with you so we can kind of go through some of those things. And welcome to Philadelphia. We would certainly invite you back to our meetings. We have these meetings the first Tuesday of every month, but then we also have other community meetings, if that's okay.
I would like to briefly address some of the things that came up in Mr. Khan's questions. This is Commissioner DuBose. I would invite you to take a look at the powerinterfaith.org website. And if you find, you will find a list of town hall meetings that we conducted prior to the transformation or the change from PAC to CPOC. We conducted 8 town hall meetings with municipalities across the nation to examine what was their best practices. And Chicago was one of those. Atlanta, where Nicole is housed, San Francisco, Oakland, California, Detroit, and several other places. We looked for the best practices. And I will say, as you referenced, giving some more strength to the legislation, many of us recognize that this legislation is the first iteration of the road trip that we have to take. With regard to Act 111 and the issues of qualified immunity, that was part of the impetus for getting the PAC out from under the mayor's thumb. As an independent commission, which is citizens-based, we came into this journey not trying to defund the police, but to do, as you have mentioned, reallocate funds that were and are still being absorbed by the PPD. We intend to reallocate some of those funds and put them in places that will be more beneficial to the citizens of the communities of Philadelphia. So this is a work in progress, because changing the home rule charter is an arduous task. Moving the some of the issues or all of the issues that are associated with Act 111, that's a long journey. But in the meantime, we're trying to demonstrate how, if funds are appropriately allocated, we can really benefit the community. And that is why one of our first questions was, why are we giving such substantial raises to staff and not really appropriating those funds? Every system in Philadelphia is top heavy. Too much weight at the top, and the benefit of these systems never reach the members of the community. CPOC, does not want to be another one of those kind of entities in Philadelphia. So I invite you to take a look at our webpage, that is powerinterfaith.org. And I invite everybody on this call to take a look at those town hall meetings where we explored and took a look at how effective municipalities who are on their 8th, 10th, 15th iteration of whatever they call CPOC, and know that we took best teaching practices, and that was the basis from which the legislation was built. I can also talk with you more about that process, but we invite you to look at that website and continue again to come to our meetings.
Thank you, Elder Melanie. At this point in time, there are 2 other items on the agenda, but what I would like to do at this point in time, since there's a meeting on Tuesday, I would like to reserve those items for Tuesday. One is a hiring update, and oh, you know what? I'm sorry, I take that back because Afrosia asked to talk about hiring. So I'm sorry, Afrosia, go ahead.
So I would like to know where the ED hiring committee is on the process of electing our ED, because it's caused a hiring freeze, and the rest of the commissioners who are not part of that committee are not privy to what's going on. And I want a public update so that we are all here and we can understand what's going on. We have a GC in place who will be starting very soon in May. So yeah. Tell us if anybody from the ED hiring committee would like to talk about what's happening and what can we expect in terms of when the permanent ED will be in place.
As far as the executive director hiring, we're scoring the final applicants, and there's a technical issue. We were not all to be together, and it was me. I was not able to physically be present, so we came up with the idea of having the interviews recorded. We are waiting for the videographer to turn over one final interview for me to review and score, and we will tally the scores, and then we will have an executive director.
Is there a timeline for that?
As soon as possible, honestly. It is to a certain extent out of our hands. It's the videographer. We're waiting for the videographer to turn over the final video. My understanding is that the videographer has been engaged with other obligations. However, honestly, we being me, have been emailing almost daily for the past week and a half for 2 weeks.
May I ask who the videographer is?
I don't know. It's I don't know the name. I think it's like Ace Productions or something like that.
Are they with CPOC?
No,
No, okay,
independent of CPOC.
okay.
Can I ask a question about something that you just said, Jolie?
Sure.
When we get the video, when you get the video and complete the scoring, you said we'll have an executive director. Are we clear on what the process will be for the commission itself if, unlike the general counsel hiring committee, we don't have a unanimous recommendation out of our commission? I mean, out of our committee.
Judge, I thought we being the executive director committee kind of really hashed this out and went through it at length the last time we met. And my understanding was
we hashed it out.
Yeah, my understanding was that numerically, whomever was the top person would be the recommendation from the ED committee. That was my understanding. Elder Melanie, Hassan, if I am mistaken or incorrect, let me know. But my understanding was numerically, whomever was the top person would be the recommendation.
No.
Well, I did not understand that.
And that's fine. That's why, I said, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was what I walked away with, because that was my understanding of why we decided to go with strictly the numerical value of each applicant.
I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying that I came out of that meeting with a somewhat different view or somewhat different understanding, which was that if, unlike the general counsel hiring committee, we were split on our recommendation that consistent with the language of the ordinance, it would be up to the full commission, using whatever process the commission decided on, to hear our reports and make a decision. And in other words, that it would take a majority vote of the commissioners to choose the executive director under those circumstances.
And again, I'll let Hassan or Elder Melanie weigh in, but my recollection of the conversation is that's why we decided, instead of to just make recommendations, all right, I recommend this person as my top one and my second pick, to just numerically, right? We add them all up, and whomever had the top score. I believe in coincidences, or just, fluke. So if there's a coincidence or a fluke that there's more than one person who has the same exact score, then I mean, we can, take it from there. But I thought that part of our conversation was, in order to try to avoid that, it's just strictly numerically, whomever was the top person would be the recommendation. But Hassan or Elder Melanie, if you, feel free to weigh in.
Commissioner Hatchett, you are correct. That has been Commissioner Lerner's pushback the entire time. And each time it's lifted up, we discuss the original design of the process, and we come back to holding to the original design of the process.
Yeah, I was of the understanding that we would go about the numerical, we would go about it numerically as well.
Well, I continue to feel, whether you characterize this as pushback or whatever, I continue to feel that that's a decision that under the ordinance, the entire commission ought to be making. And I guess we'll first of all, we aren't at that point yet. So I won't say anything more about that now.
I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. Jelly, would you mind clarifying that? What is the process? I'm just trying to understand it. It seems like there's a couple of different things going on here. So what is the hiring process that the ED hiring committee is doing, and where in the process are you all?
As I mentioned, again, there are 5 people that were interviewed. The final portion of the process is to numerically rank them, or at least I walked away from our last meeting, which I don't think was that long ago. My understanding was that we would rank them numerically, which was the design from the beginning when we came up with the questions, and we said that we would rate them from 1 to 10, I believe. If I'm mistaken, feel free to correct me, but I'm pretty sure our score sheets have, numerically a value from 1 to 10. And that the person with the highest score, totally, all 4 of us would submit our scores for the 5 people. Person John Doe, out of 100 points, right? Because I believe there were 10 questions. John Doe, if he has 100 all across the board, right? So he would technically have 400 points. If John Doe has 400 points, he would be the recommendation.
Chairman Jelly, we did the same thing. So what you're doing, as I recall, we all gave them scores for the general counsel. So what you're doing is exactly the same way we're doing. So you're doing the right thing as far as from what I'm hearing. Yes.
Well, I mean, it's not a matter of well, thank you for your comments and those kind
You're
of words. But for me, it's not a matter of doing the right thing. For me, it's a matter of this is collectively, right? Collectively.
Yes.
And that's why I said, for everybody, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong or if I'm mistaken. But I thought that collectively, that was the process that we came up with.
I think we use numbers for ours, but
Yes.
we all
I
use
think
the
y'all
scales,
based
so-
it off of what we are doing. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think y'all based it off of what we are doing. Because we started our process before you all.
Mhm.
We gave the template. I shared the template that we use for you all to go forward and conduct your interviews.
I think we had a final conversation to kind of figure out who was the preference for everyone based on the interviews. but I don't think that we summed it up based on the numbers.
Well,
Which is
yeah,
fine.
we did, but we decided right then and there when we finally decided who were we going to choose. So we did. We
But
did
how-
right then and there.
You guys are
However, you
missing it.
decided to do it, it's fine because you all had the autonomy as that committee to do it how you saw fit.
Exactly.
I'm just saying my recollection of what we decided, is what I explained 2 times at this point.
Chairman Jolly, I got the impression that we don't, being from the committee for the general counsel, we don't vote what you and the rest of the commissioners vote on. That's separate from us. So we don't take a vote from what I gather.
And again, like I mentioned, right, you all have the autonomy because if we're setting up committees, right, the whole
Yes.
purpose of, and I believe this was alluded to earlier,
Yes,
Elder Melanie, if we are setting up committees, we're all competent and intelligent people who were elected to serve as
Yes.
commissioners. And
yes,
if you all put in the work and if you interview people, you would probably be in the best position to recommend whomever you're recommending.
yes,
Especially having 4 people, I believe, sat on that committee and came up with the
Yes.
decision.
yes.
So
And
again,
I
however you
do the same
decided
for you.
to
Okay.
do it, it's fine with you all. And if there is a recommendation, I mean, what we would then need to do for the general counsel is only waiting on approval. And if it's something that can go forward next Tuesday, then that should be done. I haven't been made aware of anything like that or to put that on the agenda. Because the other thing is when you say hiring was put on hold, that's not in connection with the executive director or general counsel.
No, it's not.
So I don't know, my computer's freezing. So Roger, I hope that answered your questions. Honestly, I would like to give a date certain, but it is literally out of my hands. And I've been following up daily with the videographer to get the footage. I can't see my agenda at this point. I think that was pretty much the last thing that we were going to try to discuss. I will open the floor up with the last maybe 5 to 7 minutes for questions or comments from the community at this point. And again, I can't see everyone. I have 2 different screens I'm navigating, and then I can't even navigate my screen. So I'll ask Hassan, John, or Mary Ellis if you can see people whose hands are raised because my screen is frozen. If people want to speak at this point in time.
I do see the agenda. One thing that we didn't cover was the mission statement. I'm not
We
sure.
tabled that.
Yeah, we can just hold that off for next Tuesday,
Okay.
especially with maybe like the last 10 or 12 minutes to provide the community an opportunity to weigh in. Thank you though, John.
We have a hand up, Andy. Mr. Andy's hand is raised.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll make this real quick. It was a follow-up in the chat. Mr. Hatchett, I know your background is as a lawyer and a DA. If you knew off the top of your head, Act 79, the state law that requires anyone that's subject to order of protection has to relinquish their firearm to Philly PD or the sheriff. Do you know, would that apply to Philly PD officers that are active as well?
So what I'll say is based on my experience, it just in general, it applies to citizens. I previously worked in a police department, not the Philadelphia Police Department, SEPTA Transit Police Department. And what I can say is just in terms of, we've had instances of domestic violence. What we would do is once we're notified, we conduct an investigation, we put the officer on administrative leave and they relinquish their firearms to us. So it's a matter of more so proactively, we have them do that. We were never put in a position where we were forced to, or by law had to seize their weapons or their firearms. But honestly, to the extent that I came across it, it was more so on a voluntary basis.
No, they're supposed to give up their weapon.
And that's their personal firearms as well that they own,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, are we done with that question? Mr. Andy, are you done with that question? I don't want to miss.
I think he's giving a thumbs up.
All right.
Yeah, yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Samantha with her hand raised at this moment. Or would you prefer me to just read it?
There we go.
No, what's written in the chat, you guys can get back to me at another time. I don't want to waste too much time. I want to stay on topic here. When it comes to police officers who are in mental health crisis and are on heavy medications, isn't there some sort of red flag law that doesn't allow them to interact with the community and carry a weapon? Thank you.
I'll just speak for me. I've never heard of any kind of red flag law or anything like that. Again, just based on my experience, substance abuse issues have manifested itself in different ways. And to a certain extent, as long as the officer was not presenting himself as a danger to himself or anyone else. We've even had situations where we came to learn that a police officer was suffering from substance abuse. What we would then do is we would take her firearm when she reported off of work. When she came back to work, we would give her her firearm. So it was like we wasn't sending her home with a firearm. To that extent, because there weren't any charges or anything like that levied at that time, there was nothing that we could do about personal firearms. But in terms of department issue firearms, we would not send an officer home with that. But I am ignorant if it comes to any kind of red flag laws that would require that. Again, I can't navigate my screens or see, pull up the chat. So if there's any other comments or anything like that, feel free to jump in.
It doesn't look like there's any more hands up.
When's our next executive session?
Whenever we want it to be.
So
We can actually have one after our next meeting. We can have one before our next meeting.
doesn't matter to me.
How long of an executive session? The only reason why I ask is because a lot of times we already, as commissioners, we already plan to be together on that first Tuesday. So if it's something quick, we could either do it 30 minutes before. I don't know how deep the issue will be, if everyone will be up to it and have the energy 30 minutes after. But I mean, those are options.
I don't know how long it would take. I just think we need to have executive session as soon as possible to work out these committees.
Let's talk offline and see if we can set something up for this weekend then.
All right.
Okay.
You got a comment in the chat? Thank you for doing the hard work of becoming a commissioner that represents the citizens of this city and working towards effective oversight of our police department. Beth Walker. Miss Beth, you always give us extreme compliments, and I want to thank you as well.
Yes.
Samantha said, thank you, commissioners and fellow citizens. May your week be wonderful. Thank you as well, Samantha. It's always a pleasure to have everyone join the Zoom. We have a lot of frequent flyers now. So that is encouraging to see the people that continue to come on, as well as the new people to come on and participate in CPOC. Your feedback is noted and appreciated. I just want to thank everybody as well as the staff. And my fellow commissioners, my bad.
I was gonna say with that, Hassan, I mean, you can't say anything else after that. You might as well just close it out at this point. Make a motion to adjourn.
Is that a motion to adjourn, Chair?
Sure.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
You can't, but okay.
Is anybody second? Come on.
I second.
All right, let's get on out of here. You guys enjoy your evening.
Have a good night, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good night.